jump into it. I mean, we've been talking for a while now.
Yeah.
First of all, I appreciate your time. You just told me where you come from. That's I appreciate the love that you make time for us.
Ain't no thing, man. You know what I'm
And
saying?
I've told you on the messages. It's an honor more than anything to have you on the show. Been following your career, and you said something earlier before we got started. You said some people think like it'll be too late. You won't be able to work with these people, but you can always work with them. I would have never thought, when I started listening to Dope House, started listening, Shadow, Grimm, that I was gonna, have the opportunity to sit down and have this conversation with you.
Man, it's my pleasure, dude. I mean, like, yeah, I don't have a problem doing it. Never have. I know a lot of people sometimes don't even know Grimm has a twin brother or who I am. A lot of people do, but I've always been laid back and pretty much in the background, the Mac in the back, while all the chumps in the front were rapping. But I was just, doing all the engineering, doing all the, you know, late night, staying in the studio, putting it all together as best I can to make everybody shine. You know what I'm saying? And that to me was my job. I didn't really care about ever taking pictures or doing promo pictures. You don't hardly see me out there in that form. But I'm always open, man, to do things like this. You know what I'm saying? Especially in this day and age where, the social media has pretty much taken over. We didn't have this kind of stuff, back then. You know what I'm saying? Where people doing visuals to all their songs. In fact, if you think about it, like Grimm and I think we have a handful of videos ourselves. You're not going to find that many out there. And it's not because we don't want to do it. It's just, at the time, that wasn't.
A different time.
It was a different time.
So for whoever might not know who you are, obviously they've been slipping under a rock. So Mr. Shadow Ramirez, can you take us back to where it all started, from the very beginning?
Where it all started from the very beginning is honestly, and I just got through doing this other interview, and they asked the same question. I saw a movie called Beat Street, and it was in 1984. I went to Gulfgate. They had a little theater, you know what I'm saying, right across the bridge at Gulfgate Mall. And I must have stayed there all day Saturday, and I watched that movie over and over, back to back to back. Like, I paid once, but I stayed in there. You know what I'm saying? Snuck out, got back in, snuck out. And I must have watched that movie for that whole weekend. I fell in love with hip-hop as soon as I understood, like, I watched it, and I wanted to be, first of all, I wanted to be Ramo in that movie, the graffiti artist.
Yeah.
But as I got more into the movie, I started seeing that there's, like, elements of hip-hop, and it brought all that attention to me. And I started listening to all these, different people like African Bambaataa, Soul Sonic Force, Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, Melly Mel. And these people, like, were just, to me, amazing. And what they were doing and how they were doing it with two turntables. And then, so the elements were graffiti, dance, rapping, and DJing, right? And somewhere after, I started dancing first, right? Because I was 15, 15 at the time, or 14, 15 at the time, and I started breakdancing first. So I knocked that element out, you know what I mean? I got good at it. I mean, to the point where we actually, did trips to California with the Houston Playboys. And we had our parachute pants, and we had our outfits and everything, And that's a whole nother story. There's another details in the book that I'm writing about that. But when I got back, I always wanted to be Ramo, so I started doing the graffiti, and I started doing that, and that's how I got my name actually, because I would paint the walls late at night, so I dress all in black with my backpack, and I would go in back of Wieners on Telephone Road down the street from my mom and dad's house in Moline, in that area, and I sprayed back of Wieners with a guy named Wedo and. Actually, Sambo, you know what I'm saying? The guy's in prison, you know what I'm saying? Peace out to Sambo out there. But we was out there with graffitiing. Graffiti, got that done. In fact, it got to the point where all the way up until 94, when I put out my first album with Grimm, I actually did a piece with Gonzo 247, man, peace to Gonzo 247, who now is like the graffiti king of Houston. He's the one that did, the Inspire Houston, tag. He's painting planes now, you know what I'm saying? Gonzo is huge. and I actually was honored. I actually bombed the wall with him, so that was another that was anyway. So I started getting into the music part, tackling that element of the hip hop. And while I was doing all that, my brother was into rock and roll, man. He was just like, he wasn't hearing that hip hop like that. I got bit. And he was like, nah, man. He was like a punk rock. What I called him was a trench coat mafia. He wore a gray trench coat. He had his long hair. He had combat boots on, and he's on a skateboard. You know what I'm saying? And he was listening to things like Sex Pistols, Van Halen, Ozzy Osbourne. I mean, he was going, AC/DC. He was, but Van Halen was probably one of his, at that time, was his favorite group. And I'm talking about the David Lee Roth Van Halen, by the way. Nothing wrong with Sammy Hagar, but so my brother didn't want to do the hip hop thing at all, and he would squash my radios at the house. Every time we would get straight A's or something, my mom would buy me a stereo. She would buy whatever we want, and I would always want the boom box. You know what I'm saying? Or I want the stereo. Well, he was listening to his grunge, or I mean his and I was on the other room, and I was with the boom, with that 808. Yeah. My 808 was killing him. You know what I'm saying? So he'd go to my room, man, and he smashed my radio. Oh man, you know what I'm saying? We fight, you know what I'm saying? My dad, stop fighting, My mom was like, I'm out. He stepped on he broke my radio again.
One of the, I guess you can say, a little known fact, or some people might not know, you were you were the first Mexican to produce a rap album.
Yes, we were. We were the first. We were the first Mexicanos to be on the shelf. There were other rap groups out there, without a doubt. So I don't want to take anything away from Mexican Mafia or Mexicans in Capin or Proper Dose or Generic Posse. In fact, Mexican Mafia was comprised of Prankster and Slinky. And I mean, I'm sorry, I take that back. Mexicans in Capin was a product of Prankster and Slinky. Mexican Mafia was Troublemaker, Lord Loco, Big C, who used to be, shut him down. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, and I'm trying not to forget somebody, but I know I am. And so anyway, the Miscolor Mafia, Troublemaker, of course, they ended up becoming Aggravated members. But to begin with, yeah, we were the first ones, and that was my whole goal, was to be the first Mexicanos on the shelf, because back in those days it was CDs, and to go to a Soundwaves or go to somewhere to go find your CD and see it on the shelf. I mean that shit was dope. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I saw Kid Frost, out there. I seen the first CD I bought, as far as rap was concerned, was Cypress Hill. It was Cypress Hill, and it was their first CD, and I think it was self-titled Cypress Hill.
Cypress Hill.
But it had How I Could Just Kill a Man. What else did it have? But that was the one. That was the one song that I jammed the most. How I Could Just Kill a Man. And that just got me lit. You know what I'm saying? I said, I want to be the first Mexicano rap group to hit the shelves from Houston.
Yeah.
And that was my goal. And we did it. We did it. So, I mean, here we are. You know what I'm saying?
So, y'all built Aggravated. How did Aggravated come about?
Well, Aggravated came about after my brother came. My brother and I did a album called Making It Matter Worse.
Yeah.
Okay. The first album was called Making It Matter Worse, and it was comprised of myself, Brother Grimm, Fileto, and Balazo. And what it was is that, like I said, Grimm didn't want to rap. You know what I'm saying? He didn't want to have nothing to do with it. And really the way I got him to do with it, he could tell you, is that I told him, oh, you like rock and roll so much, you don't think that rock and roll can't be in rap? You know what I'm saying? And he was like, show me. All right, so I literally went and got him Rockbox from Run DMC. I was like, check this out and listen to the lyrics. That's how I want you to, I want you to be just as powerful as they are. You know what I'm saying? And so, you had the Rockbox. Man, my brother was like, what the fuck? And you go listen to that song, man, and he marinated on it. You know what I'm saying? And he was a poet. My brother was a poet in school. As straight A students, we were in extracurricular, activities, after school. And one of the things he was in the Poet Society at Stephen F. Austin High School. I was in the band, and he could write poems. He could always rhyme. You know what I'm saying? And so I knew he had that gift. Plus, there was a white boy named Kirby, White Mike, that we hung around since Little League, and his brother, his name was Greg. He had a game that whenever we would pass the joint around, you know what I'm saying, whoever had the joint had to rhyme. So if you was like, yeah, I'm sitting here with my friends and I'm hitting it to the end, and you pass it to Grimm, and then Grimm's like, yeah, and I'm doing it nonstop because we're right here on the block, and then it would go around. It was a game, and
Yeah.
it was just fun to do, and that's like where my brother started getting his flow from. You know what I'm saying? So big shout out to Greg Kirby, man, because you know what I'm saying, he was the country hick of all. You know what I'm saying? He's like hillbilly. He's cool though. You know what I'm saying? And he was the one that kind of got him started doing that, and so that's when I told my brother. I said, man, you see, you know how to rhyme, man. You should just be my rapper, dude. Before that, man, I was just making dip CDs, deep instrumental production with my ASR 10 and everything. I was just making beats. I ain't had no rapper, so I would get comedian albums like Richard Pryor, Rodney Dangerfield, Flip Wilson, you know, and I would just put those little skits from those albums that my dad had, at Cheech and Chong, and I would throw it over my beats, right? But it had that 808 behind it, you know what I'm saying? Boom, you know what I'm saying? And people would hear that at the gas station, and I would make cassettes, and I would sell them for like $5. People were like, man, what you banging for? It was something that was different.
Yeah.
So I had something. My brother being kind of like a street pharmacist, you know what I'm saying? He was making his little stacks. But I wasn't into selling, drugs or anything like that. You know what I'm saying? That was my brother's hustle. You know what I'm saying? Mom, sorry, Mom. That, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, exactly. So I got him to start rhyming, and he started writing his rhyme. The first rap that he wrote was "So Much Violence and Killing, the Thrilling, How We Living." I can't remember the whole rap, but it was called "So Much Violence." And at the time, like I said, I had got in touch with I had Deuce, you know what I'm saying, and Dopey and Egypt, you know what I'm saying, and they was kind of showing me around, you know what I'm saying, and while I was doing my little, dip tapes. And then I told my brother, I said, man, they introduced me, or they told me about this dude named K-Rino. This dude named K-Rino, he was like the South Park. He had a clique called a coalition called the South Park Coalition.
South Park Coalition, yeah, SPC.
And at the time, the people that were in a part of the South Park Coalition was Klondike Cat, Point Blank, the whole Street Military, PSK 13, you know, AC Chill, rest in peace, AC Chill. We were in that class, you know what I'm saying? And once we started, doing, little things here and there, because my brother, really in the beginning with Dope E, when I finally got him to meet K-Rino, Dope E took him over there and he started doing a rap. And that was that rap he did, So Much Violence and Killing the Thrill. And they were doing something for somebody's, click song, because everybody did a click song, right? A 13-minute long, no chorus banger, right? It was a click song. So they were writing that down, and my brother stepped up and he recited his rhyme to everybody. And he actually, I think my brother can tell it better because I wasn't there, but he gave it to K-Rino, and K-Rino told him, like, nah, man, we rap our own raps here. You know what I'm saying? And my brother's like, I don't want, he didn't want to be a rapper, dude. So he said, all right, you know what I'm saying? I think he took that as a challenge.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But he could tell you, like I said, he could tell you better. But he started rapping. Like, I was like, okay, well, come on. You know what I'm saying? Let's do this. You know what I'm saying? So that's when we were working on the the
Aggravated.
Making It Matter Worse album.
Making It Matter Worse.
And my brother said, we need a DJ. And my brother went out himself and he found a DJ. He found Fileto. Fileto had a cousin named Balasso. They lived together in this, little bitty old apartment off of Chimney Rock behind that old Pizza Hut over there. It's still there. And they were working at Mayflower. They were movers, you know what I'm saying? And they were just, the most barrio boys you've seen in your life, you know what I'm saying? Man, but they had, they would go to work, they go home, they had their turntables, right? And they would practice all day, and then they fall asleep practicing. They'll go to, I said, man, these are the dudes, these right here. And we all named each other, like, when I named my brother Grimm, and I think my brother helped name Fileto because Fileto would do the cuts. And we named Balasso because he was a shoot first, ask questions later kind of guy. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? But he was a talent because he would find all our samples. So we did the Make It a Matter Worse album. That's what happened. Once we did the Make It a Matter Worse, we were working on, man, we're gonna be millionaires. Like, you know what I'm saying? We're gonna hit
Yeah.
this, man, we're the only Mexicans. And I was like, we're gonna be the first ones to put it on the shelf. Let's do this. And we did. And when it hit, it didn't do as like what we thought it would do. You know what I'm saying? And at the time, we didn't realize how much of a success it was as far as being pioneers in the game, and we didn't even look at it like that. We was trying to make some money,
Yeah.
and we didn't make a whole lot of money. You know what I'm saying? So we was figuring out ways to do shows and stuff like that. Well, we pretty much got to a point where after the momentum died a little bit. Plus, and I don't mind saying it, everybody knows it's true. Me and Fleto, we got into a riff, like we got into a funk. You know what I mean? And we just didn't get along. And at one time or another, all of us had fought in all these groups and stuff, or had an argument.
Yeah.
And me and Fleto we had an argument. You know what I'm saying? And we didn't get along. We didn't see eye to eye. So they actually lived with me, Fleto and Blossom, when they moved back to where they were from. I think I know they were from Freeport. They moved back over there. My brother, about 3 or 4 months later, comes at me and says, "Hey man, I did a song with Fleto and Blossom. I want you to check it out." I was mad, dude, because I was over here working on this other album for me and my brother. I'm thinking that me and my brother are a team. You know what I'm saying? And not that we were never going to work together or anything, but I wasn't going to work with Fleto. You know what I'm saying? I was like, we can still do this because, you're the rapper.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And Fleto's, he's a DJ, and I would like to work, you know what I'm saying? But he don't want to work with me, and I don't think I want to work with him right now. So my brother didn't take he went about himself. And it was weird because, remember, he didn't want to rap at first, right?
Yeah.
And now he's taking the initiative because once he started something, he was going to finish it. So he went over there and he did a song, and he showed it to me, and it was I'm my future. I'm your future.
I'm your future, yeah.
And I heard it, and it had Klondike on it. And I was like, man, it was so dope. You know what I'm saying? I couldn't. And the sample, it was a Bob Marley sample. You know what I'm saying? It's the same sample that 50 Cent used for Window Shopper. You know what I'm saying? But it's the same sample. But we had used it, Belasso had found that sample first in his crates. And I was like, damn, man, that bitch is slamming. You know what I'm saying? At all. I didn't become an Aggravated member after that. You know what I'm saying? They went and did their own thing. In fact, I heard it was supposed to be Aggravated Mexicans.
Yeah.
But Loco being the only negrillo, you know what I'm saying? Negrito.
Yeah.
He couldn't.
It threw it off.
Yeah, it threw it off. So Loco was like, nah, man, how it gonna look? You know what I'm saying? Well, your name is Lord Loco. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Cause we still hung out, even though like I said, we didn't get along or anything. Anybody had any problems with everybody? It was business. You know what I'm saying? And so we all hung out. You know what I'm saying?
So Aggravated, you guys established the name. You guys have your success, early success. Like I said, at the time you didn't think of it as success, but
Right.
and then y'all years later down the road, y'all go to the most hated.
Right.
What made that title change from?
That's a good story. What eventually happened was that Aggravated did do what we thought most hated. I mean, we thought the Make It a Matter Worse album was gonna do. Aggravated did, and what I mean by that is that I know it was at a show called the Funplex. It was at a venue called the Funplex, and they had this huge old show, and I think Scarface was there and some other Houston acts, and Aggravated got on stage. They were wearing these royal blue shirts with an Aggravated print on the front, like an oval print, and there was 7 of them, right? And they had this presence, and they already had the "I Am Your Future" single just blowing up. You know what I'm saying? In the street, by the way, right? They didn't play this on the radio, right? So it was all street bangers, and the street was loving it. You know what I'm saying? And they started doing promoting, going to Boomerang, going to do like radio remotes. You know what I'm saying? Jimmy Olsen and the Box would be at outside with their van, at Boomerang, and they'd start doing little promo. Everything we did was about free promotion. You know what I'm saying? It was about going out there and just trying to get ourselves known without spending a dime. You know what I mean? So we go to little remotes, radio remotes. What's up? We out here, you know what I'm saying? Boomerang. You know what I'm saying? You know, Aggravated's out here. We got Grimm. We got them. We're chilling with Jimmy Olsen. Come get your drinks. The ladies are fly. You know, I mean, we knew the game. We knew how to spend. And the radio people, they loved it. Because, you know, we started bringing people in with our, you know, I guess the way we, you know, we're so, I guess, loud, really. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We're just so out there. So once the name became big and that album started doing successful, what happened was, to get to your answer, is that uh, Filetto's uncle owned or was a CEO of Bad Boy Entertainment, which that's what it was on, I believe, and that's what Aggravated was. Like say Aggravated Records, but he didn't sign, he didn't get any of them signed. So now he's in a position like he wants to do this next album, but and nobody at the time was worried about uh, um, money or anything like. It was just trying to get noticed, right?
Yeah.
To get exposure. So nobody was tripping on money or anything like that. Like for real, like it was weird. No trip. But his uncle was. He was thinking ahead. He was being proactive. He was like, hey, you know what? I got to get these people to sign this contract. You know what I'm saying? So when he started asking people to sign the contract, nobody was really wanting to sign a contract. In fact, the only two people that did sign a contract was Slinky and Troublemaker. Slinky calls Prankster, and he's like, Prankster! We did a skit on it on The Most Hated. You know what I'm saying? I
Yeah.
signed the contract, fool. I signed it, and Prankster's like, you what? You ain't talk to the rest of the group? Oh, man, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, when that happened, Filetto actually ended up burning that contract, right? And Filetto's uncle is coming to pick up the contract that Filetto's supposed to have already. Filetto and Loco, right? They're
Yeah.
together, and they're at this dude's one of our homeboys' house, and they're on the porch, and Loco and them, they're just like in disgust because they didn't like the contract. And in fact, Filetto, like I said, he burned it.
Yeah.
So it's smoldering on the ground when I get there, and I'm like, you know, I'm laughing. Nah, I'm not. Well, yeah, I am. You know, I'm not an aggravated member. I'm like, you know what I'm saying? All the, you know, but I didn't want to see them go through what they were going through at the same time. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I get there and I see you know, I say, what's up, man? And you know, Loco's like, man, it's on the floor, and I look, and it's like a corner of the thing just burning. You know what I'm saying? It's just ashes. And Filetto throws it on the ground and kicks it, and here comes his uncle, you know what I'm saying? And he sees the contract burn. Oh, man. Picks it up. He's mad, dude. He just picks up the contract, throws it in some little paper bag, and takes off, you know what I'm saying? And the reason I say all that is because now it was like, what are we going to do? Because what are they going to do? Because Slinky and Troublemaker had continued. They were going to do the Aggravated album, and they had the name.
Yeah.
You know, he had the name. You know, he had it registered, his uncle, right? So they couldn't use the name Aggravated, right? Now, remember, I'm over here. I'm working on my brother's solo album still, The Brown Clues,
Yeah.
right? So I got tracks. So I got beats. Now, the Slinky and Prankster, now they got to find a producer. They got to find somebody who's going to help them. And Belasco's already, you know, everybody's on this side. I'm over here because I'm with my brother. And so they came to my brother, comes and says, hey, man, I know you got those tracks. We need to put out this album before Faggravated. I mean, the new Aggravated, we call it Faggravated. You know what I'm saying? And we're like, you know, and you got those tracks. So if you work with Filetto again, you know what I'm saying, and y'all can, you know, finish these tracks up, you know what I'm saying, man, we can get this album out quicker. But, you know, are you cool with Filetto? You know what I'm saying? And I was like, man, I said, you know, and it had been already years. And like I said, we had already been hanging out, you know what I'm saying, with the Aggravated thing, with my brother being involved. Anything my brother was going to be involved, I was going to be involved with. And so, yeah, I went up to Filetto, and we actually went up to each other, and we shook hands, and, you know, we hugged it out, you know what I'm saying, in a sense. And when we said, you know, man, let's get this paper, you know what I'm saying, let's do this.
Being that Bing and Carlos get convicted at the same time, around the same time, what do you think would have happened had those two not been convicted? Well, how do you think things would have played out?
Well, definitely Carlos was the mogul, right? So I could see Carlos being like, I could compare him to like, if he wouldn't have got locked up, maybe he would be in a position where Jay-Z's at. You know what I'm saying? As far as being the top mogul, you know what I'm saying, rapper in the industry, Carlos would be the top Latin mogul, you know what I'm saying, rapper in the industry.
Yeah.
Honestly, if he never got locked up, the question should be like, what would he be writing about? You know, because right now his I know his lyrics and I know that his albums have been a little dark or sad or some people say he's